Interestingly, what we are going to do today is, I'm not planning to teach you guys anything, but I would still want you all to pay attention. Now you must be wondering what kind of a creative or stupid sentence or statement is that. So since we have a couple of new kids in the class and we have been going all over the places, we picked up unit 4, then we went to unit 13, then we picked up different units, and then we kept on learning things here and there. What I'm trying to do is, now with more of you being in the class and things are getting more serious, I wanted to, in today's class, I wanted to dedicate next 1 hour to go through everything that we have as part of the syllabus for SAT, so that you all know what are the things that is there in scope, and then from those topics we'll figure out what are the ones that needs more attention, because it might so happen that if I just go in a flow, some of the topics that I'll pick up will be known to many of you, and then you will think that this is like waste of time. So that's why I wanted to spend some time today to go over the entire syllabus for SAT and at least talk through the high level of all the topics that we have in scope for SAT, and then we will, from that, what I would need you guys to do is, while you're in the class, keep noting down the topics that you think you have not practiced enough, or you think you would want me to focus more on that. Okay, so let me get started. Any questions before I do so?
No, sir.
Okay, so where did it go? So first unit is called Foundations of Algebra. When you talk about foundation of algebra, that is, okay, let me not spend time on that. So foundation of algebra, that's the first unit. If you look at that topic, what are the things that we need to know? Solving linear equations and linear inequalities. Linear equations and linear inequalities, that is first topic. Then second topic is understanding linear relationships. So solving linear equation and inequalities, things like this, or y 3y always, 2y greater than or equal to 15. So these are the two scenarios that we're talking about, and we'll have different flavors of that. We'll come back to the topic and we'll see what we know versus what we don't and what extra thing we can know. But this is the second topic. So solving linear equations and solving linear inequalities and the relationships among them. Next topic is linear relationships with word problems. Again on the foundation, where you will have different scenarios given. It will be like a paragraph of question where you have to read it, take the meaning out of it, and then form an equation and then solve it. That's the third topic within the first unit. Next one is graph of linear equations and functions. Again, how do you graph the linear equations that we have done before, and we can come back to that. So even if you guys have some doubt, we will certainly come back to these topics again. In today's class, we are just trying to go through that entire topic so that we know what is the boundary of SAT and how much of that we already know. Here's Sarah. Hey Sarah. So Sarah, we are not going to learn anything, okay? Today is a fun class. We are just going to talk through all the topics which is in syllabus for SAT, and we will just look at what are the things that we know versus what we want to know. So I would want you guys to pay attention to every topic that I call out, and if you think that this is something that is new to you, just note it down. And after this class, you all will compile your list of topics that you think you would want to put more focus on and send it to me, so that I compile that list of topics and go through it one by one in next 2-3 months, so that after 3 months, basically by end of this year, we'll be in a position where we'll say, okay, fine, we have covered the entire topic of SAT one round, and let's do a second iteration of it. So math is all about practice. So We'll figure out the topics and we'll do enough practice so that when we go for SAT, it looks like a fun exercise. Yeah?
Okay.
So we talked about linear equations, solving linear equation and inequality problems. Then we talked about next topic is linear relationships and word problems. So how do you hear a word problem, convert that into a equation and then solve it? That is what will be part of that. Then solving system of linear equations. This is where you will have couple of linear equations and then you'll use those equations for solving it. Like, you have two linear equations like this and then find out the value of x and y. So this is a situation where you have multiple linear equations and then you're using that for solving the equation. There could be a scenario where you'll be given 3 equations and 3 variables, and how do you solve it? So those are the things that will be in scope for this chapter. We are just covering the different topics right now. And while I'm talking about these topics, if there's anything that you think you are not clear about, note it down, because I would want that to come to me in the WhatsApp. Okay? And it can come to me one-on-one also. That's fine. I mean, you don't have to put that in front of everybody, but yeah, any which way is fine. So that is all about system of linear equations and word problems. Next one is linear inequality word problems. So again, extension of the same thing. We talked about linear inequality, meaning it's like an equation but not equation. It's less than or greater than. How do we interpret that? How do we graph it? How do we take the meaning out of it? How do we find out different possible solutions for inequality scenario? So that is on the linear inequality and system of linear equations and word problems, and then linear inequality word problems. So again, whenever you talk about equations or inequalities and the word problem related to it, it will be like you'll be given a scenario. You have to read the scenario again and again, convert that scenario into an equation or inequality, whatever it is, and then you deal with your use your mathematical skills for solving those equations. So that's a part of the linear inequality word problems. Next topic is graph of linear systems and inequality foundation. So again, the same thing, graphing linear equations or linear inequalities. Before I talk about inequality multiple times, I believe everybody in this class is clear about that, right? When you say equation, you have an equal to sign. When you have inequality, you have a greater than or less than equal to or greater than equal to. This kind of thing. Meaning, in place of equal to, you have something else. And when you talk about, let's say you have a linear equation like this. When you plot this, you get a line like this. But if it is less than 16, then it will not plot a line. You will plot a line, but if it's less than or greater than, depending on that, you will find out which region it is referring to. Is it below this line or above this line? So that's what inequality scenario helps us, right? I believe everybody is clear about that. If not, we will come back to it. So keep noting it down. Any of the topic that I talk about which is new to you, or you believe you have done less practice, or you have some doubts, keep noting it down, because that has to come to me as an input which I'll use in the subsequent classes for explaining to you guys. Are you guys with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that covers the first unit. So basically, if you look at the first unit, it's primarily around equations, linear equations and linear inequalities, and then different flavors of it. Okay, when you are dealing with single equation, how do you plot it, how do you solve it? When you have multiple equations, how do you solve it, how do you plot it? So when you have single equation, just the equation. When you are dealing with multiple equation, that is when it is called system of linear equations. Okay, so whenever you talk about system of something, you are essentially talking about a group of things. It's multiple things together which you are trying to. Let's say I have two linear equations like this. Both are equations. I can solve it algebraically, or I can solve it using a coordinate plane also. I will draw this line with this one, let's say, and this equation draws this line. wherever these two meet, the coordinates of that plane becomes my solution for this thing. So I'm just, I know you guys would be knowing about it. I'm just repeating myself just to make sure that conceptually you know that okay, if I have two equations, I can solve it algebraically using isolation techniques, or I can plot them on a coordinate plane and solve it. Any of you have doubt around this one? We'll anyways come back to it. Okay, that covers unit 1. Shall I move on?
Wait, did you say we can solve it by inserting it in the coordinate plane?
So when you have, let's say, two equations, two linear equations, every linear equation means it will plot a line for you. Yeah, because linear equation has a line in it, right? So every linear equation will plot a line for you if you want to do that on a coordinate plane. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have two linear equations, meaning both will plot a line, correct?
Yeah.
So there are two linear equations. You can solve it using algebra. No problem with that. Now,
Yeah.
if you don't want to solve it using algebra, you have second option where you can use the coordinate planes. You'll just use the line, both the equations, draw them on the coordinate plane and see where they intersect each other. Wherever they intersect, find out the x and y coordinate of that point. That is your solution for these two equations. Because when you are solving these two equations, you are solving it for value of x and y, right? Algebraically. When you plot it here on a coordinate plane, wherever they meet, it will have an x and y coordinate, right?
Yeah.
Find out the x and y coordinate, that becomes your solution as well. So basically, what I was trying to say was, you can use the same two equations in two different ways for solving it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
that is about the unit 1. Let's look at what is there in unit 2 for us. So, when you talk about unit 2 is foundation problem solving and data analysis. So, inside that unit, let's look at the topic that we have. Okay. Ratios, rate, proportions, everybody knows. I'm sure you all would have practiced. We'll come back to this topic again. I'm just calling out the topics, okay, so that it gets registered in our mind that okay, they are the thing that we have to prepare for. And if there's any doubt, we'll come back to it. Ratios, rates and proportions. Unit conversions. This is where you convert from one unit to another unit. Simple examples would be centimeter to inches, kilometer to miles, gallons to liters, kilogram to pounds, or vice versa, right? So we have different units. So we can convert within the same unit from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, like converting a meter into centimeter, or foot to inches, or vice versa. Or we can traverse across US customary system and metric system and find out those conversion formulas, right? I mean, we all, till you guys are here in US, you talk in pounds. The time you go to India, you talk in kilograms. Are these two way too different? No, they are two different ways of measurement. We just have to know how they are related. And that is what this unit is all about. Unit conversions. Yeah. So you can convert from a bigger unit within the same system, like kilogram to a gram, or other different units like milligram, centigram, decigram, decagram, hectogram, right? Within the weight unit, or within the distance from kilometer to meter, or millimeter, or whatever, right? There's a song that I keep singing, right? Milli, centi, decimeter, deca, hecto, kilometer. This is a sequence, and then you can replace meter with gram, meter with liter for volume and weight. Same way, in the US customary system, you have the sequence of you have the different units within weight, volume, and distance, and how do you convert among themselves? And we'll have to know about those conversions. What I know based on my experience with the SAT exams and all, I see that they give you the conversion units actually. So you don't necessarily have to remember them, but in the ideal world, I would assume we should know those conversions ourselves, because if the teacher doesn't give, if the examiner doesn't give those conversions, we should not be stuck. I mean, these are part of day-to-day life, right? It's just about knowing them in a more disciplined way. Anyways, shall I move on? Next one is percentages. Everybody talks about different deals, discounts, percentages, interests, whatnot, right? How do you apply that? And then use the different concepts of knowing what number is what percentage of another number, or what is the value of a certain percentage of a given number, and then problems around that. Then comes the next subunit within this unit 2, that is center, spread and shape of distributions. So this is where we'll talk about mean, median, mode, right? And then different formations of the number combinations that we deal with. So okay, I'm going non-stop. Let me stop here. Are you guys able to follow me, whatever I'm saying so far?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
basically,
yes, sir.
I'm just calling out the units, okay? I'm not teaching you guys anything. I'm just reading and telling, okay? But wherever there's something to add, I'm just adding it. Next topic within the same unit is data representation. And this is where we'll talk about different types of graphs, charts, and multiple flavors of the data relationships, and how do we use that for representing that in a more intuitive way. And there are different flavors of bars, charts, and graphs that we will talk about. And most of these topics, as you guys can relate, you would have learned in some of the previous classes also, but SAT is more like an aggregated view of all the things that you have learned till date in maths, and then they test us on our holistic knowledge of maths. Yeah? Next one is scatter plots. Again, another data representation technique for a different scenario. So I'm sure you guys would have heard about scatter plots and would have used that also. It's like when you have a lot of data, you plot different points for that and then derive some interpretation from those scatter plots. Yeah. Then linear and exponential growth. So linear and exponential growth, meaning when you have certain data now, it increases by certain percentage or in a certain manner. How do you deal with different scenarios, and how do you kind of do calculations behind that? So that is where we'll talk about, since we talked about percentages here, we'll talk about simple interest, compound interest, and whatnot. And then comes probability and relative frequency. So this is where from the data you are given 4 data elements. If you have to predict what will be my 5th data, you will look at the trend, and from that you will derive the interpretation. So that's about the probability and relative frequency. And again, we'll go deeper into it. Again, I'm just covering, for lack of a better word, right, tip of the iceberg. We're just talking about the different topics that we need to be familiar with. And I want you guys to pay attention to what I'm saying and note down the topics that sounds not so familiar, okay? So that, note it down, send it to me saying, sir, these are the 4 topics that I would want you to focus on. And each one of you gives those topics to me. I will compile them all and then we'll start going one by one, okay? And then data inferences, similar stuff. You have a lot of data as a raw data, as some structured data, organized data, graphs, charts, plots, whatnot. And then how do you derive inferences from that? Because data is all around us. The way you and I will look at the data versus that data being looked at by somebody else, they would derive a different meaning out of it. So that's why organizing data, structuring data, data collection, and then doing some massaging of data for better representation, those are things that we'll talk about, and how those inferences are useful in different scenarios for different people with different roles. So we'll talk about that. And then comes evaluating statistical claims. So same data conclusion and data collection and conclusion. How do you use data, build some statistics around that, and use that for later use? Yes, here.
Sir, can you repeat the name of this topic?
So this is called evaluating statistical claims. Evaluating statistical claims, meaning data statistics, and how do you evaluate that data for some meaningful interpretation. So this is the topic where you will learn about the difference between the organized and unorganized data. How do you collect data? How do you organize them? How do you use that information for plotting it for somebody else's consumption? Okay. And again, all these topics that we're talking about, if you look at the heading of the unit itself, which says foundation problem solving and data analysis. So in this scenario, it says how do you read different types of data? How do you find some trend out of it? How do you plot it? How do you collect it? And then how it will be consumed by somebody else. So in this whole journey of data, collection to massaging to organizing to plotting to interpreting is part of this particular unit. So this is where you learn from raw data to finding out mean median modes, but then kind of organizing data, preparing tables, graphs, chart, bars, scatter plots, and then all that is done for a reason. How do you read the data? How do you interpret the data with the minimal information? I mean, a classic example, right? We all went through a very bad phase of life. We experienced something called Corona, right? And every day you must be seeing those charts, the data being represented. Say, okay, whether it's on an incline or it's on a decline, there were different charts that were published on internet, right? Where we could see which state is doing good, which is doing bad. Imagine if somebody had just dumped a big bunch of data for all of us to consume and interpret. It would have been very difficult, right? We're talking about the whole world suffering from it. But when you looked at those graphs and charts, that made it look much easier to understand and interpret, okay? So those are the things, there's a lot of things that is done behind the scene. So we'll have to understand all that, and then from that we'll make intelligent decisions to figure out in what scenario which plot of data is important and which one can be used, which gives the maximum value for the end user who's going to consume it. Okay, is that okay so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next one is probability and relative frequency. Again, similar thing. You have data. You have certain amount of data. From that data, you derive the trend. Find out what are the probabilities depending on different things. Like in daily life, you all would have watched different games. People toss the coin, and whether head comes or tail comes, it's left to a possibility. In mathematical terms, we call it probability. And there's math around it. Similarly, when you are playing, different games, you would have seen those dice that we roll, and we don't know whether I'm going to get 1 or I'm going to get 6. That is again another flavor of probability that we deal with. Similarly, you have a big basket of fruits, and you know that there are different types of fruits. You just pick one, being blindfolded, and you don't know whether it's mango or apple or orange. So there are different mathematical calculation behind that, and that gives you a sense or a possible outcome for those different scenarios, and that's what we do in probability. So we'll talk about these topics again. I'm just calling it out for now. All right. Next comes data inferences. Again, similar stuff, extension of what I said. You collect data, you find whether it's organized or unorganized. How do you organize it? Do some massaging of data. Store the data, organize that in some kind of a report or form, and then how do you use that information for different inferences. Imagine a CEO of a company which has 10,000 people. That guy has to get different report from different teams based on how the teams are performing. He or she cannot ignore any of the information because that is going to help him make decisions. So he would want data to be accurate, and he has very little or no time to look at those data, right? So that is where the importance of data representation and inferences from that makes a big difference. We'll certainly talk about those scenarios also to get a clear view on that. Then evaluating statistical claim, we talked about data collection and conclusion. That finishes unit 2. So unit 1 was more about the equations or different system of equations and inequalities. Unit 2 was more around data. How do you deal with different types of data? How do you collect it? How do you use it? Next one comes foundations of advanced math. This is where it gets interesting, and this is what we were doing in last few classes, right? Where we talked about, first unit was talking about simple linear equations. Life became more interesting by the introduction of quadratic and polynomial expressions and equations. We talked about radical and rational exponents. So we all knew about exponents. This is a scenario of exponent 2 to the power x or x to the power 2. Life becomes more interesting when you put something like this. This is where the exponent is not a natural number or a whole number, it's a rational number. That's why it's called rational exponent. And the same x to the power 1 by 2, you can represent this as a square root. And this is nothing but another representation of the same exponent, which is called radical exponent. So foundation of advanced math, all the things that we have learned in the simpler, easier way. Linear equation became quadratic and polynomial equation expression. Simple exponents became rational and radical exponents. Similarly, dealing with our operation with polynomial functions. So when we talk about polynomials, how do you deal with different operations of around polynomial functions? That is what is done in this unit. So we'll come back to these units again. Be assured that we are going to come back to it. I'm not trying to just give one hour class and then say, okay, we covered everything for unit for SAT. Okay, this is just giving you guys a recap of what all we need to to learn and identify the topics that could be of interest for you guys based on your priority. Otherwise, I'll go with my priority in my sequence. Yeah, and for everybody, each one of you who is attending classes for next 1 year, be assured that we'll cover these topics at least 2 or 2.5 iterations. Okay, so anything that we learned today, if you are able to cover, if you are able to understand, then do practice. Wonderful. If not, you have videos for you for your reference. Revise it, practice it. If not, we'll do second iteration of that and we'll repeat the same exercise, because math is not a subject for people who feel lazy. You will end up doing a lot of practice, and that is what makes you good at this subject. Okay. Then next topic within advanced math fundamental is operation with rational expressions. So again, we talked about rational expressions. What is a rational expressions? Okay. So we talked about expressions, and then comes the operation with rational expressions, meaning you call this as an expression. Come on. A lot of noise today. This is an expression, and if you put this becomes a rational expression. So you have expression. Oh no, my bad. This is rational. I'm mixing two things. So this is a normal expression. This is a rational expression. So expression which is in the form of a rational number. So you have variables in the numerator and denominator both. So again, we'll come back to these topics and we'll talk about different types of calculations. How do you break it down? How do you deal with it? How do you do different operations with rational expressions? Okay. Come on. And then non-linear functions. So we talked about linear functions which plots a line for us on a coordinate plane. Non-linear functions will not plot a line. So that is where we'll deal with different curves, parabolas, and different behavior around it. So this is where we will deal with things which are non-linear. And then next one is isolating quantities, where you have functions, so you have equations and functions. How do you isolate similar things, get them on one side for solving the equations or expressions? So that is what will be part of this topic. And then next one is solving quadratic equation, linear quadratic systems, and radical, rational, absolute value equations. Okay. So let me not bore you guys by reading this over and over again. So let's do a quick summary of it. First unit is more around linear equations and different flavors of it, including the word problems. Second unit was more around dealing with different data scenarios, collection of data, dealing with manipulation of data, plotting it, interpreting it, and we'll talk about all the units within that. Then the third one was more on the foundation of advanced math. So this is where everything that we had learned in a simpler, easier way, that started becoming more interesting. So linear equation became a quadratic equation, polynomial expressions, normal exponents became rational and radical exponents. We were dealing with system of linear equations. Here it became a system of non-linear equations. So anything that was easy and simple, that became more interesting and more flavor to it. So in this topic, in this unit, you will see that okay, we'll deal with parabolas, how the parabolas move. If I change the expression of a parabola, where does it go? What do we do for moving the parabola this side versus this side, upward or downward? Okay. How do you interpret? How do you look at the parabolas, equation and expression, and how do you derive different interpretation from it, whether it's facing upward, downward, or other behavior of it. How do you find out the zeros of the parabola, where it is intersecting x or y axis? So these are the first 3 units. Briefly, I'm myself getting tired actually, okay, because just reading it is boring. Hey Gitesh, you joined a very senior class, okay? You have joined the SAT.
Sorry, I just at the 8:30 class, I joined like 10 minutes late, and
after that I had to drop off because no, I cannot keep waiting the whole day. This is a 8:30 class, is only 35 to 40 minute class, and nobody joined for 10 to 12 minutes. This class is only meant for you guys to clarify your doubts.
I joined the last 10 minutes. I joined 10 minutes.
Okay. So anyways, you'll have to drop off from here, Gitesh. Your class will start at 5. Okay?
Yeah.
So that is where we'll talk. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye. Alright. Sorry. So the 3 units that we talked about, right? This just gives a flavor of what kind of things that we talk about or we need to be prepared for. And we can literally go on. So I will not go into the minute details of each and every topic. So let me just read the unit names itself, and from that we'll try inferring what are the things that we'll come across. So we talked about foundation algebra, linear equation and word problems. Second was problem solving and data analysis. This is where we talked about data collection and plotting graphs and inferences from that. Next one was advanced math. This is where we talked about things becoming more interesting, and simple equations, simple exponents, simple expression became quadratic equation expressions and properties related to that. Exponent became radical and rational exponents. Simple expression became rational expressions. So that is precisely what we'll end up covering as part of advanced math. Next one is foundation geometry and trigonometry. So this is where we'll talk about different types of shapes, the properties, area, volume, surface area, and we'll go from 2-dimensional shapes to 3-dimensional shapes. And then how do we correlate them to kind of use that for our for converting to when a 2-dimensional shape converts to a 3-dimensional shape. How do you relate the area and dimensions of the 2-dimensional shape for getting the volume and surface area of the 3-dimensional shape? So that is what we'll cover as part of geometry and trigonometry. And then obviously when you talk about geometry, you'll talk about right angle triangle, and then that becomes the base for our trigonometric discussions. And then comes the medium level of algebra, meaning this is where all that we learned in the first unit, where we talked about linear equation, word problems, and different scenarios, it will get more flavors added to it, and life will become a little more interesting. So this is where you will talk about solving linear equation, different word problems, and then more complex flavors of it, using graphs and solving it, dealing with some ambiguous scenarios and then use that information for solving different equations. So in summary, if you see, there are 3 units and followed by advanced math, and that gets repeated in 3 iterations. That is how it makes it total 12 to 13 units. And first is foundation, then is the medium level, and then comes the advanced level. So all that we don't learn based on the basics or medium complexity or high complexity one. We learn the concept and we deal with all different types of problems in our classes, so that it becomes more like a concept for us to deal with. So it was kind of a long, boring speech for you guys, right? This is a math class, which is supposed to be actually a math class. But then I just wanted to give you guys a flavor of this, that everybody in this class, I would want you guys to spend 10 to 15 minutes, okay? Because I'm kind of not getting very excited about reading through all those topics. I would want you all to go to Khan Academy, okay? Go to Khan Academy, and inside Khan Academy you'll find something called test prep. When you go to test prep, there's something called digital SAT, and that digital SAT gives you the complete rundown of everything that you need to learn for math, and we were primarily talking about that. So the 3 topics: algebra, problem solving, and then advanced math. Similarly, foundation geometry, trigonometry, then followed by algebra, medium level of algebra, then problem solving and data analytics, medium level, and then goes to advanced level. So just go through these topics, and I would want you guys to spend 15-20 minutes outside this class to go through these topics and list down, okay, these are the 4 topics which is very new to me. Just the topic. I don't want you guys to go and study by yourself, otherwise what is that I'm going to do? Right? I mean, there's no problem if you guys study by yourself also, but then I would want you guys to compile and tell me they are the 4 topics that I would want to learn faster than other topics, so that there's no problem with my preparation for SAT. Okay, and I would want that exercise to be done before the next class on next Saturday. So tomorrow I will continue with the unit 4 that we were doing. We'll try finishing that unit, and then if I hear feedback from you guys, then wonderful. Otherwise, I'll go back to unit 5, which is geometry and foundation of trigonometry. So if you guys want me to stop doing that, tell me your preference of topics. Otherwise, I'll just go in that loop and make sure that we cover all the topics that we have for SAT. Let me take a pause. It's a very boring speech for all of you. Okay. So, any questions so far with respect to what I was trying to convey? I know I did not teach anything today. And let me disclose this, okay? So the reason why I was kind of doing a recap of everything that we have learned so far, or what we need to learn as part of digital SAT, is because some of you would start giving the SAT exams, right? Some of you might be planning to do it early next year. Some of you might be planning to do it even before end of this year also. So that's why keeping that boundary in mind, saying, okay, these are the things that we need to know, these are the things that we need to learn, is very important, and actually it helps you stay focused on your agenda for SAT preparation. Otherwise, we tend to go in all possible directions, and then we end up losing track of what is the most important thing that we need to know. I mean, I can tell you guys, I mean, no matter whether you stay in this class or you would have not joined the class also, 80% of the things or 70% of things are already known to you. You would have certainly come across that. What we are trying to do here in this class is create a bundle out of it, create a package out of it. Because 80% will get you in the 80% category of students. You want to stand out and be in the top 20%, right? That is where doing this multiple iteration of what we learn and how we use that information, how do we practice those topics, how do we clarify some of the doubts, will help you stand out and be Best among equals. Let me pause here. Seriously. Any questions, beta? I mean, each one of you. Any questions with respect to what I was saying?
No, sir.
Only option is no, right? Okay, all right. So, key takeaway from today's class, okay? I will let you guys go 15 minutes early today because I'm not trying to start a new topic today. I thought I will probably use this time for doing a quick recap of all that we need to learn as part of SAT and what would be our source of information so that we stay focused on those topics and then we go about it. So after this class, I would want you all to, from now till next Saturday, tomorrow we'll anyways have a class, we'll continue and try finishing Unit 4 that we were doing, which is nothing but the foundation of advanced math. There are a few topics left in that one that we'll cover tomorrow. But from now till next Saturday, I would want you guys to just go through the digital SAT prep syllabus only, not the topics. I mean, go through the syllabus as in go through the name of the topics and see which topic sounds new to you. And list down, say, okay, fine. These are the 6 topics I would want you to teach me. Breaking the sequence. If each one of you send me those topics, that makes a list of 12, 15 topics that I will pick up on priority and make sure that we cover those, understand those, practice those in next 1.5 to 2 months, so that if any of you decide to give a SAT in December, you go prepared. I mean, there cannot be any faster preparation than that for SAT actually. Yeah. So remaining 15 minutes that we have, I will open this forum for you guys. I want to hear from you. If any of you have any particular question in mind, anything that you would want to understand how that is done, or any problem that you would want me to solve that I can do, or any question that you want to ask with respect to how to go about preparing, what is our plan, or anything that you want to give as a feedback, that also we can take. So I'll go mute only when and talk only when any of you have a question for me. No questions? Ask questions. I am not that scary, I believe. Okay, so if you guys don't ask question, I'll ask question. So can I get a promise from you all that I will get a list of all the topics that you would want me to prioritize before next Friday, before next Saturday?
Yes, sir.
I knew Arya would be the first one to say yes. Thank you, beta. Who is? Okay, then Sivatsav is also saying yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Sarah is also saying yes. Wonderful.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Savya. Very nice. Here. Yeah. So it is going to be a half an hour exercise, okay? But trust me, it is your best opportunity to make sure that each of the topic that you want to focus on gets prioritized, okay? So please do that. This will get you prepared for your SAT a little faster, okay? And everybody can have different selection of topics, right? Because I might know certain topic in a great way, certain topics might be very delusional to me. So the ones which are delusional or incomplete or not understood well conceptually, I would want you guys to kind of share that with me, okay? It's like diagnosing the problem by yourself, yeah? And there's nothing like feeling bad about it. If you think that, okay, there are 7 topics that I'm not really confident about, it's fine. You still might know a topic very well and you can still choose to repeat that. That's perfectly fine, yeah? And also I'm offering you guys, when you're compiling the list of topics, you guys can also choose certain topics on pre-calculus and calculus also, because I'm planning to start a separate calculus batch as well. But for you guys it is free. You just tell me what are the things that you want to learn. You'll say, okay, fine, teach me functions. Perfectly fine. Domain and range. Fine, we'll start with that. and we can keep on. So again, even if it's a digital SAT prep class, but if you want to emphasize on certain topics, you can always ask for it. You have to just give me a day's time so that I can collect all the information about that topic and then teach you only the things which are more relevant for you guys. Okay. So everybody said yes, and that must be rewarded. So that means if you guys send me the topic before next Saturday, try sending it by Friday, okay? So at least I get few hours to go through all the topics and then do some sequencing among them, okay? So give me some time. I mean, if you send it by Friday or Thursday evening, that gives me a bit of time to prepare and kind of build that narrative for the class, right? And then teach you guys in a simpler way. So if you do that, that will be that will be prioritized. If you don't do it, no damage done. Just that you'll have to bear with me. I'll go in a certain sequence, because so far we were jumbling the sequence of the topics, because we had some students in the class who were wanting to give SAT earlier. So that's why we picked up certain topics that was of interest for those specific students. But now we will start going in the same sequence. So unit 4, then we'll go to unit 5, 6, 7, 8 till 13, and then again come back to unit 1. So this will become a vicious loop. All right, everybody happy, confused? Okay.